Mollies are one of the easiest fish to breed in aquariums. They're live bearers, so they're often one of the first fish that new aquarists breed. But today I'm going to talk to you about a few things you can do that can maximize your chances of both having babies and getting a lot of babies. With mollies, you can breed hundreds to maybe even thousands in a very short amount of time if you do it right. So stick with me as I tell you my tips to maximize your production of mollies and have a good time doing it. One of the most important things to focus on when breeding mollies is having a proper ratio of males to females. Now, I like to usually have at least 2 females to every male, if not more. But it's also important that you have at least 2 males, in my opinion, because I haven't run into circumstances where I had a male that wasn't reproducing. Either he wasn't mating with the females or there were some other issues going on. So generally, I would recommend you start with 2 males and 4 females, or even more females than that. I drew some pictures to sort of demonstrate how you can tell males from females in mollies. When they're really young, it's hard to tell, but once they reach the age that you would generally see them in a fish store, you're going to be able to identify this. The males have a more pointed fin called the gonopodium, which is used for reproduction, similar to reproduction in mammals. And the females, instead of this pointed fin, have a more rounded fan-shaped fin. And this is a really easy method. It takes a little patience if they aren't positioned right in front of you in the tank, but hands down, easy way to identify males and females. Shouldn't take you that long. And any pet store you go to, they should be able to identify for you as well. So try to get 1 male to every 2 or 3 females. Ideally get 2 males just to avoid the potential of one of them being infertile. Now, my second big tip is something that I think a lot of people don't follow, simply because sponge filters aren't that popular. They may be more popular with people who watch people keep fish on YouTube, because once you get informed, you realize sponge filters are great. But sponge filters are really important because they don't allow fry to get sucked up, where a power filter will suck up fry really easily and you won't even know they were born because they've already been chopped up in your filter before you could see them. So sponge filters are very important for that reason. They also, for a number of different reasons, I think are just easier to service. They also provide aeration, which is a positive thing. And overall, sponge filters are just a much better filter to use for breeding fish of any kind due to their gentler flow and a number of other benefits that sometimes it's hard to even realize until you make the switch, but highly recommend sponge filters. Now, after you've removed the power filter from potentially sucking up your fry, the next most likely way your fry are going to die is actually from their own parents or other fish in the tanks. So the best way to avoid that is to get some kind of live plant or other cover to allow the babies to escape the parents and be able to survive until you either remove them from the tank or hide long enough till they grow big enough that they can't be eaten. My favorite live plant to use for protecting baby fish, and this would apply to mollies, is Java moss. Java moss is a great plant because it doesn't require a lot of light, but it's very dense and bushy, and it's very easy for baby fish to get into and hide, but it's very difficult for adult fish to chase and target a baby fish in this big mass of moss that just, it's a great protector for the babies. So highly recommend Java moss. You can get it online. Ideally, you could get it in your local store. But sometimes it's challenging to find a place that has it depending on what area you're in. Other plants can be good as well. Easy ones include things like Java fern, Anubias, but Java moss is really great because it grows quickly and no other plant really matches its bushiness and ability to protect fry. Now, mollies are a bit selective about the type of water that they like. They prefer harder water with a higher pH, which in all the places I've lived has been the case coming out of the tap. But for some people, you may have more acidic water or softer water. And one of the best ways to correct that or change it to the what Molly's like is to use something like crushed coral. Crushed coral both raises the pH and the hardness of the water, which makes it more preferable for Molly's. Um, I believe it also adds calcium to the water, which is important for their bones, because when a female pumps out 30 to multiple hundred fry, she has to give some of the calcium in her body to those new lives. And in order to replace that, there needs to be an ample supply of calcium in the water, which the crushed coral will provide. Interestingly, African cichlids and mollies require fairly similar water conditions with the high pH and high hardness. So in this tank over here, I had been keeping my mollies with my Chinanga solosi, which are from Southeast Africa. Um, I'm not sure if I'd recommend this to a beginner, but what this does mean is if you see African cichlid substrate being sold in a store, you could also use that substrate for mollies, and it would perform the same beneficial things as crushed coral by hardening the water and raising the pH, while also providing you with a nice substrate to go in your tank. While mollies are really easy to breed, it is really important that you feed them frequently. And that will not only maximize production, but it'll also just keep the fish healthier and keep them growing fast, because a fish with an empty stomach isn't going to grow. Two of the foods that I highly recommend that I think a lot of people might not be using are rapashi and frozen foods. I like frozen brine shrimp, or even frozen brine shrimp with spirulina. Um, the frozen foods are really easy and they provide really good nutrition that you can just pop out of your freezer and drop in the tank. And rapashi is a powder food that you mix with boiling water to create jello. And this food is really good because it's water stable for a long period of time. So you can drop in a big chunk of it in your tank in the morning. And if you go to work or something, the fish can work on eating it throughout the day and it won't break down very quickly. And that'll allow them to get a constant supply of food for a long period, which will help them grow faster, produce more babies, and feed any babies that may already be existing in the tank. One of the big reasons it's important to have two or more females to each male is because the males will harass the females a decent amount trying to breed with them. And this can lead to fish getting tired out and beat up through these interactions. I've also seen the stronger male of two males sort of attack the other and beat it up to a point where it could die. So it's really important that you keep an eye on your mollies and be prepared to potentially isolate one if it's getting too beat up, especially a female, because you don't want to lose a female and then further concentrate the aggression of the male on the remaining females. Now, once you have babies, as I mentioned earlier, you can leave them in the tank and you'll hopefully have some survive. But in my experience, the parents do prey fairly heavily on the babies, especially if you're not feeding them very frequently. And what I like to do when my mollies have babies is isolate them in a breeder box. I use Zis breeder boxes, which I'll leave a link down in the description. They're a very good way to add space to protect your babies while not having to get another tank. You do need another airline to run them, but it's a really, I would say, efficient way to protect your babies and grow them without getting overwhelmed with extra tanks. Right now, I'm working on breeding mollies in a 10-gallon tank. I think a 10-gallon tank is about as small of a tank as you'd want to try breeding mollies in, but as long as you keep up with water quality and are paying attention and making sure your fish are doing well, 10 gallons is ample space to try to breed mollies for the first time. Mollies were the first fish I ever bred, and I hope they're as enjoyable for you to breed as they have been for me. If you want to check out some more species of fish that are really easy to breed, check out this video I made on mollies and 2 other species that you could breed by accident. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.